Hi, Dad. I think we can share in our disapproval of today's stupid controversy. The stupid controversy is, did Elon Musk perform a Nazi salute at the Trump inauguration? Um, and uh, and the answer is that nobody actually cares about this question. And I'm kind of contributing to the problem by talking about it at all. But it is an opportunity to talk about bullying and the way in which bullies manufacture these kinds of misunderstandings and the way that polarization helps them. Um, because, yeah, I've seen still images of Elon Musk with his arm straight out. I'm not going to reproduce the gesture, partly because it doesn't fit very neatly into this frame, and partly because there's certain levels of misunderstanding that I don't really want to invite. And that's me being a person who is largely responsible in terms of the way that he's perceived, even if he does throw cats across the room from time to time. Yeah, I have some awareness that I am a person who lives in the world and I don't invite controversy. I don't need that desperately to be talked about. And I don't have other agendas going that I'm desperate to distract everybody from. It's really, really useful to train your victims to respond to dog whistles. And it's really, really useful if you are a part of a victimized group to be very disciplined in the way that you respond to dog whistles. Because we all know, or at least we all have the opportunity to learn, that if you're right and you lose your temper, then everyone will remember that you lost your temper. I certainly learned that through years during which I lost my temper. And no one gave a damn about the content of my message anymore. It was all about the fact that I had lost my temper. And so bullies will do these semi-innocuous things that remind you of the abuse. And then you get upset and everyone's like, well, that was an innocuous thing. Why are you upset? Clearly you're insane. And this is how... Okay, there's a whole pedantic thing about whether or not that constitutes gaslighting that is really not very helpful. Gaslighting is a little bit like literally, that doesn't mean anything anymore either. But the bully trains you to overreact to things, and you see something that strongly resembles a Nazi salute, but can legitimately be interpreted as something else. Looking at video of Elon Musk doing it, he looks much more like an overexcited child pretending that he's a superhero. And I think if there's a just Elon Musk, frankly, is an overexcited child pretending that he's a superhero. But he does the thing, and people who are primed to perceive him as a threat will see that perception reinforced. And people who are primed to see him in an affectionate, positive light will see it as perfectly innocent. And this serves the bully really well when the would-be victims respond in ways that make them look crazy. Because because looking crazy reduces the sympathy that you have. Take it from the crazy person. When I talk like this, and I talk slowly and calmly in determined ways, I come across as credible. If I am crying, yelling, any of that sort of thing, then people will interpret it as proof, let me do that, proof that I cannot be trusted, that I am irrational. Listening to people when they're upset is difficult, and people who are upset often do have cognitive distortions going on. Sometimes the reason they're cognitively distorted is because the threat is real and no one's listening to them, and that's what they're actually upset about. Communication skills are really, really useful, especially if you are a person who is subject to victimization. And so there's this fantastic invitation that has been given to progressive people who care about US politics, which is a significant proportion of the people on YouTube, to get really upset about this and to become seriously uncool in the ways that they respond to it. You could directly lose your temper. You could lose your temper with someone who refuses to see the obvious. You could use it as a test for which of your friends you're going to get rid of today. That's a particularly insidious, that one, because it's also useful for cult leaders on the left. If you get really, really, really excited about this and you ditch a whole bunch of people from your life because they are insisting that, I genuinely believe that both perceptions are perceptions that can be legitimately held. I have seen actual Nazis actually doing Hitler salutes, and they're a lot more disciplined, they're a lot more focused, they hold the position for longer in order to prove the masculine strength of their arm muscles, which is the sort of bizarre fetishism that Nazis are into, right? I wonder how many followers I just lost. Both perceptions are legitimate. If you go on an unfriending spree, or this is the last straw between you and your centrist former friends, then you have a smaller social circle, and cult leaders want you to have a really small social circle. It's one of the reasons why, when the Nazis were trying to recruit me, they asked me to tell lies about the Jews, and they were honest to an extent. And they acknowledged that it was a lie, and they said that the objective was to shift the Overton window. I was nowhere near famous enough to shift the Overton window, but I was potentially vulnerable enough to alienate all of my left-wing friends by telling lies about the Jews. And that would have made it impossible, or much more difficult for me to get out of the neo-Nazi recruitment effort that I was subjected to. Tangents, they are real and dangerous. And the way you deal with tangents is you ignore them and you focus on the main game. And the way that you deal with an obnoxious billionaire doing obnoxious stuff is you go, okay, I see that you are willing to be mistaken for a Nazi. is it actually a mistake? That's a different analysis. But you're willing to have certain people perceive you as a Nazi and other people defend you. That's how Elon wins this game, is by having that duality of perception. He then gets a much clearer concept of who his friends are, who's willing to humiliate themselves doing backflips to defend this behavior, and who's going to go for him. That's another part of how he wins. So, yeah, one of the things that we are going to need when it comes to US politics is for the good guys to learn that it's not enough to have the right ideals. You need to be way cooler about how you deal with this stuff. And so notice the dog whistle, observe that this racist has, am I going to get sued for calling him a racist? I think it's a defensible view. That this guy who has a long history of being offensive, wildly offensive, has done something offensive again. It doesn't prove anything to anyone who didn't already agree with you. Feel free to preach to the choir and conduct loyalty tests and that sort of stuff if you want. But if we're going to have a really successful movement in terms of getting the people, there needs to be an opposition to Trump and Elon Musk and the undeniable oligarchy in the United States. The oligarchic behavior of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party is a subject of very real concern. Ranked choice voting is probably the single intervention that could make the most difference in terms of if I only get one intervention in the United States, I want ranked choice voting, because then you have a chance at actually representing the people of the electorate, as opposed to this hyper-polarized environment you get where it is the person who can mobilize the most outrage that wins the election. Where was I? Yeah, try to be cool about all of the stupid shit that we're going to see over the course of the next while. There's going to be enough genuinely dangerous shit that spending your energy on this is just wasteful. Yeah, that's where I am with that. Let's see how that goes.